March 1943, Harlem. The war in Europe was draining America's resources. Rationing was in full effect, and the streets of New York were caught between patriotism and survival. But in Harlem, a different kind of war was brewing. One that had nothing to do with Hitler or Mussolini, and everything to do with 127 children who were about to go hungry because the Italian Mafia decided profit mattered more than innocent lives. This is the story of how Bumpy Johnson went to war with Lucky Luciano over milk and bread. How one man's refusal to let children starve turned into the most audacious hijacking operation Harlem had ever seen. And how sometimes the line between criminal and hero disappears completely when you're standing between the powerful and the powerless. Sister Mary Catherine ran St. Augustine's Orphanage on 138th Street. It wasn't fancy. The building was old, the paint was peeling, and the heating barely worked in winter. But it was home to 127 children, ages 3 to 16, most of them black, all of them unwanted by a society that had no place for orphaned colored children in 1943. Sister Mary Catherine had been running St. Augustine's for 23 years. She'd seen children come and go, seen some fine families, seen others age out into a world that didn't care about them. But she'd never, not once in 23 years, let a child go to bed hungry. Until March 15, 1943. The orphanage received funding from 3 sources: city allocation, which was minimal and always late, church donations, which were inconsistent, and a private arrangement with Genovese Food Distribution, a company that supplied milk, bread, eggs, and basic staples at reduced rates. Genovese was owned by the Genovese crime family, one of New York's 5 Italian Mafia families. The arrangement had existed for 8 years. St. Augustine's paid 40% of market rate for food supplies. In exchange, the Genovese family got tax write-offs, community goodwill, and a legitimate business front. It was a system that worked. Until it didn't. On March 15, 1943, Anthony Genovese, nephew of family boss Vito Genovese, walked into Sister Mary Catherine's office. He was 32 years old, wearing an expensive suit, smoking a cigar that probably cost more than the orphanage's weekly food budget. "Sister Mary Catherine, we need to discuss your arrangement with Genovese Distribution." Sister Mary looked up from her paperwork. "What's there to discuss? We've had the same arrangement for 8 years. That arrangement is ending. Effective immediately, you'll pay full market rate or find another supplier." Sister Mary's face went pale. "Full rate? We can't afford that. Our budget is already stretched to breaking. That's not my problem. Then what do you suggest we do? Feed 127 children with prayers?" Anthony shrugged. "Maybe you should have thought about that before." "Before what? Before your people started getting too comfortable. Before you started thinking you deserved special treatment. This is business, sister. Nothing personal." Sister Mary Catherine stood up. Her voice was shaking, but not with fear. With rage. "These are children. Innocent children who've done nothing wrong except be born into circumstances they didn't choose. And you're going to starve them over business?" Anthony flicked ash from his cigar onto her floor. "I'm not starving anyone. You're free to pay full price like everyone else, or find charity somewhere else." He walked out. Sister Mary sat down, put her head in her hands, and for the first time in 23 years, she didn't know what to do. The next morning, the Genovese delivery truck didn't come. Sister Mary called the company. They confirmed. No more deliveries unless full payment was received up front. She called the church. They had no additional funds. She called the city. They said budget allocation wouldn't come for another 6 weeks. She called every charity organization in New York. Nobody had resources for 127 children on short notice. By March 17th, St. Augustine's had enough food for 3 more days. After that, nothing. Sister Mary Catherine wasn't a woman who asked for help easily, but she also wasn't a woman who let pride kill children. So on March 18th, she walked 6 blocks to the Cotton Club, asked for Bumpy Johnson, and waited. Bumpy Johnson in 1943 was 36 years old, at the height of his power in Harlem. He controlled numbers, gambling, protection, and had connections that reached from Harlem to Chicago to Havana. He was feared, respected, and untouchable. He was also a man who'd grown up in poverty, who'd gone hungry as a child, who remembered what it felt like to be powerless. When Sister Mary Catherine was shown into his office, Bumpy was surprised. He knew her by reputation. Everyone in Harlem did. The white nun who'd dedicated her life to black orphans. The woman who'd turned away nobody, who'd fought the city for resources, who'd personally nursed children through scarlet fever, tuberculosis, and polio. "Mr. Johnson, I need your help." Bumpy gestured to a chair. "Sister Mary, I'm honored, but I'm not sure what help a man like me can offer a woman like you. The Italian Mafia cut our food supply. 127 children are going to start starving in 3 days unless I find another source. I've called everyone. Nobody can help. So I'm here." Bumpy leaned back in his chair. "Why did they cut you off?" "Anthony Genovese said we were getting too comfortable, that we don't deserve special treatment. He wants full market rate, which we can't afford." Bumpy's jaw tightened. He knew Anthony Genovese, knew his reputation. A spoiled nephew given power he hadn't earned, trying to prove himself by squeezing every dollar out of every operation, even ones that served children. "How much do you need?" "Enough to feed 127 children 3 meals a day. Milk, bread, eggs, vegetables, meat when possible. Our old arrangement was $200 a week. Full rate would be $500. We have $200. Bumpy was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened his desk drawer, pulled out $500 cash, and handed it to Sister Mary. "This covers this week. Come back next week. I'll have more." Sister Mary stared at the money. "Mr. Johnson, I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. This is an investment." "In what?" "In making sure that when those 127 children grow up, they remember that when the system failed them, when the church failed them, when the government failed them, Harlem took care of its own. Sister Mary took the money." Her hands were shaking. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I'm not done." "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going to make sure you never have to come begging for food money again." "How?" "By teaching the Genovese family that you don't starve children in Harlem, not on my watch." After Sister Mary left, Bumpy called his 4 most trusted men, Illinois Gordon, Willie Lee, Marcus Cole, and Quick Jackson, the same men who'd helped him destroy the KKK cell 3 years earlier. The Genovese family just cut food supplies to St. Augustine's Orphanage. 127 children are about to go hungry because Anthony Genovese wants to squeeze an extra $300 a week out of nuns. Illinois Gordon's face darkened. He'd grown up in that orphanage, spent 8 years there before aging out at 16. "What's the play, boss? We're going to feed those children, and we're going to do it with Genovese food. You want to hit their distribution center?" "No, I want to hit something bigger, something that hurts them where they'll feel it most, their pride in their pockets." Bumpy pulled out a map of New York. "Lucky Luciano might be in prison, but his organization is still running. They control the waterfront, the trucking routes, everything coming in and out of New York. Every week, Luciano's organization moves $2 million worth of goods through the city. Milk, bread, meat, vegetables, luxury items, black market goods, everything. I want their trucks." "All of them?" "No, just the ones carrying food. We take the trucks, distribute the food to St. Augustine's and every struggling family in Harlem, and send the Italians a message. You don't starve our children." Marcus Cole whistled. "Boss, that's declaring war on the commission." "I know. You sure about this?" Bumpy thought about Sister Mary Catherine's face, about 127 children who'd done nothing wrong, about Anthony Genovese flicking cigar ash on a nun's floor. "I'm sure." "When do we move?" "Tomorrow night. They run their biggest supply route every Thursday. 12 trucks from the docks to distribution centers across the city. We're taking all 12. March 19, 1943, 11:47 p.m. The convoy of 12 trucks left the Brooklyn docks right on schedule. Each truck carried between $50,000 and $200,000 worth of goods. Milk, cheese, bread, canned goods, meat, vegetables, and hidden in 3 of the trucks, black market items, cigarettes, alcohol, luxury goods that were supposed to be rationed. The route was the same every week. Brooklyn docks to the Bronx Distribution Center. 45 minutes, 12 trucks, 2 armed guards per truck, and a lead car with 4 additional enforcers. It was a routine they'd run for 3 years without incident. Tonight would be different. At 12:03 a.m., as the convoy passed through a warehouse district in Queens, the lead car's tire blew out. Not an accident. Willie Lee had placed a spike strip across the road. The lead car swerved, stopped. The 12 trucks behind it stopped too. Before the guards could react, 40 men emerged from the shadows. Not Bumpy's usual crew. He'd called in every favor, recruited from every corner of Harlem. Dock workers, factory workers, men who'd grown up hungry, men who had children, men who understood what this was really about. The guards reached for their guns. Then they saw the numbers, 40 against 20. And they saw Bumpy Johnson step into the headlights. The guards knew who he was, knew his reputation, knew that if Bumpy Johnson was personally involved, this wasn't a random hijacking. This was a message. Bumpy walked to the lead car. 4 enforcers inside, hands on weapons, trying to decide if they wanted to die tonight. Get out. Slowly. They got out. Bumpy, what the hell is this? This is a redistribution of resources. You're hijacking commission trucks? I'm feeding children that your people decided to starve. You know what Luciano will do when he finds out? I'm counting on it. Tell him Bumpy Johnson took his trucks. Tell him why. Tell him that if the commission wants to do business in Harlem, they don't starve orphans. You're insane. Maybe. But those trucks are leaving with me. You can walk back to Brooklyn or you can get buried in Queens. Your choice. The enforcers looked at each other, looked at 40 armed men, looked at Bumpy's face and saw no hesitation, no fear, just absolute certainty. They walked. All 20 guards walked. Bumpy's crew took the trucks. 12 trucks, $1.8 million worth of goods, driven straight into Harlem. They parked them in a warehouse on 145th Street. Bumpy had already organized everything. 50 volunteers from the neighborhood, lists of every struggling family, every church, every community center. And at the top of the list, St. Augustine's Orphanage. At 6 a.m. on March 20th, Sister Mary Catherine heard a knock on the orphanage door. She opened it to find Bumpy Johnson standing there with a truck behind him. A truck full of milk, bread, eggs, cheese, vegetables, and meat. Enough to feed 127 children for a month. Sister Mary stared. Mr. Johnson, where did this come from? Let's just say the Italian Mafia made a donation. They don't know it yet, but they did. You stole this? I liberated it. There's a difference. Sister Mary was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. The first real smile she'd had in a week. God works in mysterious ways. That he does, sister. That he does. For the next 6 hours, Bumpy's crew moved through Harlem like Santa Claus in March, knocking on doors, delivering food, asking for nothing in return. Families who'd been struggling with rationing suddenly had milk for their children. Elderly people who'd been skipping meals had bread and cheese. Churches had supplies for their soup kitchens. And in the middle of it all, Bumpy Johnson, Harlem's most feared criminal, personally delivering milk bottles like a milkman. People came out of their apartments, watched in disbelief. Children waved, mothers cried. Old men who'd lived through decades of poverty and neglect stood on street corners and witnessed something they'd never seen before. A gangster acting like Robin Hood. By noon, all 12 trucks were empty. $1.8 million worth of goods, distributed for free to the people who needed it most. At 1 p.m., Bumpy received the phone call he'd been expecting. Meyer Lansky, Lucky Luciano's right-hand man, the financial genius of the commission. Bumpy, we need to talk, I figured. You hijacked 12 of our trucks last night. I did. Do you have any idea what you've done? I fed 5,000 people who were going hungry while your organization makes millions. This isn't about the money, Bumpy. This is about respect. This is about the rules. You violated commission business. Meyer, let me explain something to you. Your people cut food supplies to an orphanage. 127 children were about to starve because Anthony Genovese wanted an extra $300 a week. That's not business. That's cruelty. And I don't care about commission rules when children are involved. There was silence on the line. Then Meyer's voice, quieter now. I didn't know about the orphanage. Anthony didn't mention that. Of course he didn't, because he knew it would make him look like what he is. A spoiled punk squeezing nuns for pocket change. Meyer sighed. What do you want, Bumpy? I want the original arrangement restored. St. Augustine's gets their supplies at 40% of market rate, permanently. And I want Anthony Genovese to personally apologize to Sister Mary Catherine. That's it? That's it. If you agree, this ends here. If you don't, I've got connections to 12 more routes, and I'll hit every single one until the commission understands that Harlem's children are off limits. You're putting me in an impossible position. No, Anthony put you in an impossible position. I'm offering you a way out. Let me talk to the commission. I'll call you back. 3 hours later, Meyer called back. The commission has agreed to your terms. The orphanage gets their original arrangement back. Anthony will apologize. Personally? Personally. And Bumpy, Lucky wants you to know something. What's that? He respects what you did. Says if more people cared about their communities the way you care about Harlem, the world would be a better place. But he also says don't ever hijack commission trucks again. Tell Lucky I won't need to. As long as the commission remembers that some things are more important than profit. Message received. On March 22, 1943, Anthony Genovese walked into St. Augustine's Orphanage. He wasn't wearing an expensive suit this time. He looked uncomfortable, angry, humiliated. Sister Mary Catherine was waiting in her office. "Mr. Genovese, Sister Mary, I'm here to apologize. I was told the commission has reconsidered our arrangement." Anthony's jaw was tight. "The arrangement is restored. 40% of market rate. Permanently. And I'm sorry for any inconvenience caused." Sister Mary studied him. She could see he didn't mean it. Could see the resentment in his eyes. But she also knew this wasn't really about Anthony. This was about power. About the commission learning that some lines couldn't be crossed. "Apology accepted, Mr. Genovese. Your deliveries will resume tomorrow." Anthony left without another word. After he was gone, Sister Mary walked to the orphanage cafeteria. 127 children were eating lunch. Milk, bread, soup, fruit, all provided by Bumpy Johnson's hijacked trucks. She watched them eat, watched them laugh, watched them be children instead of victims. And she said a prayer, not for forgiveness, but for gratitude, for a criminal who'd acted more Christian than most Christians she knew. The story spread through Harlem like wildfire. Bumpy Johnson hijacked the Italian Mafia and fed the neighborhood. It became legend. Mothers told their children. Old men told the story in barbershops. Preachers mentioned it in sermons, carefully avoiding names but making the point clear. When the system fails, when the powerful exploit the powerless, sometimes justice comes from unexpected places. The commission never forgot. From March 1943 forward, no Mafia family ever touched St. Augustine's Orphanage. The arrangement remained at 40% of market rate for the next 30 years, long after Bumpy Johnson died, long after the children he'd fed grew up and had children of their own. In 1968, a reporter asked Bumpy about the hijacking. "Mr. Johnson, people say you stole $1.8 million worth of goods from the Italian Mafia in 1943. Is that true?" Bumpy was 61 years old, still sharp, still dangerous. "I didn't steal anything. I redistributed resources that were being hoarded while children starved. But it wasn't your property to redistribute. Neither was it the Mafia's right to starve orphans. So we both broke rules. Difference is, my rule-breaking fed 5,000 people. Theirs would have killed 127 children. Weren't you afraid of retaliation?" "Of course. But I was more afraid of looking those children in the eye and telling them I could have helped but chose not to because I was scared of the consequences." The reporter pressed further. "Some people say you're a criminal who occasionally does good things. Others say you're a hero who occasionally breaks the law. Which is true?" Bumpy smiled. "I'm a man who grew up hungry, who watched my mother skip meals so I could eat, who saw children die from poverty while rich men got richer. I'm a product of a system that gave me two choices, starve or survive by any means necessary. I chose survival, and when I got power, I chose to use it to make sure other children didn't have to make the same choice I did. If that makes me a criminal, fine. If that makes me a hero, fine. I don't care about labels, I care about results. What results are you most proud of? That from March 1943 until today, 25 years, not one child at St. Augustine's has gone to bed hungry. That the Italian Mafia learned you don't profit off suffering in Harlem. That 5,000 families got food when they needed it most. And that 127 orphans grew up knowing that even when the system abandoned them, their community didn't. That's worth more than any amount of money the commission lost. Sister Mary Catherine died in 1965 at the age of 73. She'd run St. Augustine's for 45 years. At her funeral, over 2,000 people attended. Former orphans, now adults with families of their own. Community members she'd helped. And in the back row, wearing a black suit and hat, Bumpy Johnson. He didn't speak, didn't draw attention to himself. Just sat quietly, paid his respects, and left. But before he left, he placed an envelope on her casket. Inside was $10,000 and a note. "Sister Mary, you taught me that faith without action is meaningless, that protecting the powerless is the highest calling, that sometimes the greatest sin isn't breaking the law, but following it when the law is unjust. Thank you for showing me that criminals and saints aren't always different people. Sometimes they're the same person making impossible choices in an impossible world. Rest in peace. You earned it. Bumpy." The hijacking of Lucky Luciano's trucks became one of the most famous stories in Harlem history. Not because of the money involved, not because of the audacity, but because it represented something deeper. It showed that power without compassion is tyranny. That wealth without responsibility is theft. That sometimes the only thing standing between the vulnerable and destruction is one person willing to risk everything to do what's right. Bumpy Johnson was a criminal. He ran numbers, gambling, protection rackets. He broke laws, hurt people, operated outside society's rules. But on March 19, 1943, he also saved 127 children from starvation. He fed 5,000 families. He stood up to the most powerful criminal organization in America and won, not with violence, not with threats, but with action. With the simple, radical idea that children matter more than profit, that community matters more than commission rules, that sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is caring when everyone else has stopped. If this story made you think about what real power looks like, hit that subscribe button. We're not glorifying crime. We're telling the truth about what happened when communities had to protect themselves because nobody else would. Drop a comment. Was Bumpy a criminal or a hero? Where's the line between theft and justice? When the system fails, what options are left? Turn on notifications. We're bringing you the untold stories of Bumpy Johnson. The moments that didn't make history books. The times when one man's refusal to accept injustice changed everything. Remember March 1943. The month Bumpy Johnson hijacked the Mafia and delivered milk door to door. The month 127 orphans learned that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else walks away. Rest in power, Bumpy. Harlem remembers.